and welcome to the strangest gig I've ever played. True tales from the studio and the stage. I'm your host, Chris J Norwood. On the podcast with us today is one Andrew Sherman, also known as Drulio. Currently, Andrew is a very talented concert photographer here in the DFW area. But in a past life, he was a musician living in LA, playing with the comedian Andy Dick. And boy, does he have some strange stories, as you can imagine. So let's get to it. Welcome back to the podcast. As I said in the intro, I'm very excited about this one. Andrew has got some pretty wild stories that had me reeling, and I can't wait for you to hear them. In addition to being a very talented photographer and musician, Andrew is also host of the new podcast, Dallas Famous, which you can find on Deep Ellum Radio and wherever you get podcasts. Dallas Famous is a part tongue-in-cheek, but an all-earnest pursuit to get to know some of the people who make Dallas great. It is a fantastic podcast, and I highly encourage you to check it out, especially if you're from the area. Before we get started, I want to remind everyone that the Strangest Gig podcast is intended for adult audiences, and as such, some of the language and stories in this episode may not be suitable for younger listeners. All right, buckle in, y'all. Let's get ready for some of the strangest tales we've heard to date. Here's Andrew Sherman.
Any incident I may speak of here today has long passed the statute of limitations. Andy Dick was never arrested while I was around, because he's been arrested a lot of times. And some stories may be slightly altered due to the possible short-term memory issues that I'm experiencing in life. Anyway, I just had to read that to start.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Well, Andrew Sherman, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me.
And man, thanks for reaching out. I'm super excited to get to hear these stories and
I'm actually a fan. Your podcast is really well done.
Thank you very much.
Interesting.
I've had a lot of fun doing it. It's been really cool.
Cool.
Get to talk to people and hear the stories. So.
Yeah, I mean, I like it because a lot of people have musicians, but like it's a real specific angle, and I feel like you get better moments maybe than other people just asking basic general music
That's
questions.
the idea. Yeah, that's the idea. I mean, anybody can hear, the generic, what's your inspiration for such and such track? But,
right.
I mean, I want to hear the stories.
Yeah, agreed. It's more fun.
So, man, tell me about your current gig. What you do currently?
Yeah, currently I'm a photographer in DFW. Drulio Photo is my moniker.
Yeah.
And I just mostly shoot bands. I shoot for the Dallas Observer. I'll shoot for Live for Live Music, which is a national publication. And I'll do my own stuff. I shoot for a lot of the venues.
Yeah.
And, that's pretty much what I'm doing.
That's great. So which venue is your favorite to shoot? Or would you rather not say?
No, it's okay. Deep Ellum Art Company is my home base. And that's
Yeah.
where I cut my teeth. And that's where I really got to be a good concert photographer. And I love the lights there. So that's probably my favorite, but the drawback there is it's a good thing and a bad thing, but the stage is just a little bit elevated. So I guess as far as like really big stage rooms, I guess Granada is probably the first and favorite. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
I've played Granada a handful of times. It's always a blast.
It's fun. I mean, Jay Simon's the main shooter there, and it's not as fun anymore because he's so good. I'm just like, why do I need to go? He's already doing a great job. But if he's not there, sometimes I shoot for him.
Yeah.
But it's a good room, and depending on who's doing the lights, it's unbelievable at times. So,
yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
So what's it like for you as being on the other end? So I know what it's like for me being at a strange gig and like being the musician on that side of it. What's it like for you, like watching a strange gig or watching a gig meltdown on the other side of it?
I'll say there's so much talent in town. I'm not just saying this to be nice. There's only a few times where I've seen a band literally melting down where I'm like, this is like, reminds me of a rehearsal that I once had where we didn't know the songs yet.
Yeah.
I won't say the name. It's not comfortable. Sometimes what's weird is it's a venue I've never been to. The lights are always an issue in smaller venues.
Yeah.
Size of crowd will change the dynamic for the band and obviously for me. So, I mean, I was a musician for a while.
Yeah.
And, I'll say the biggest difference for me is I feel so much less pressure because even though I'm going to work and I need to perform, nobody's looking at me. It's just, if I don't feel well, it doesn't even matter. I know I'm going to get through the shoot, no problem. And it's like when I used to play shows, I would get so stressed out if I was sick or tired or whatever. And I was not taking care of myself. So that would happen a lot.
Right.
You know?
So when was that? When were you, and what did you play?
I was a singer-songwriter. I started, I sang in choir and played sax in school.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I got into it. But then I taught myself piano, and I'm always early for stuff, like everything. It's people are like, how do you do that? I'm like, I can't stop. And so like as a kid, I'd be ready for rehearsal or for whatever. Somebody's picking me up for a ride, and I would just be at the piano waiting for hours. So that's kind of how I learned.
That's cool.
To do that. Yeah. And then, picked up the guitar somewhere in my mid-20s, and tried to do the LA band thing for a while with different groups of people.
Is that where you're from, LA?
No. I mean, I was born in New York, then migrated in high school to outside of Chicago, went to school in Chicago, and then, trying to go to LA, make the dream happen like a lot of people do.
So what did that look like? What did that look like, trying to make the dream happen?
I had a lot of fun, probably too much fun, but also it was, everybody says, well, it's harder than you think. And I'm like, no, yeah, but it's different for me. No, it was ridiculous. And like when I got there, it was still kind of cool. And then like by the time I left, which I was in LA from 91 till, I don't know, like 16, 15, it just was, it was too much. I mean, I stopped pursuing stuff years before I left LA, honestly, because I was just like, this is just not going
just got
anywhere.
Burnt out.
The rejection factor really starts to weigh on you after a while,
Yeah, especially I bet in LA where...
I mean, look, every good-looking, talented person from every small town in America ends up in LA at some point. They may not stay there very long, but they're there, and you have to be more than great. You have to be great. You have to be likable. You have to have kind of like a following before you get there. Anyone that asks me, I'm like, if you want to go to LA, you better already have a following here, because they're not going to you're going to get lost.
They're not going to talk to you.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's get into the Andy Dick stuff.
Right.
How did you, first off, I don't think I even remember Andy Dick having a band or being a musician.
Yeah, that's partly why I'm not doing that anymore.
So how did you meet up with them? What was the circumstances surrounding that?
So I went to school at Columbia College in Chicago, and it had a direct affiliation with Second City Comedy Theater.
Okay.
Because Sheldon Batinkin, who was one of the founding members of Second City, was also the theater director at Columbia. So anyway, I got there a year after Andy Dick went to Columbia, but I remember I was into the comedy thing, and I went to a comedy best of class or scenes from previous years, and his name was on the program. So Andy Dick, that's all I knew. But I'm like, you don't forget that name, Andy Dick. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, it's a pretty unforgettable name.
Yeah, and then I went to LA. I was still in college. In fact, I didn't finish college right away because I went to LA to visit and stayed. And my agent was like, go hang out with this guy who, is one of my clients. And he took me to a comedy show, and then Andy was performing. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, Andy Dick, that's got to be the same guy. And so afterwards, I was talking to him, and he was all excited. And I was excited because I was fresh in LA. I was 21. Like, I didn't know anybody. I literally went there without knowing anybody. Yeah. So I was like, oh my God, somebody to hang out with. And so he was like, I was like, I know who you are. He's like, oh yeah, I totally know you too. And I was like, yeah, well, yeah. And so, so then he was like, do you have any weed? And so we went and got stoned, and that was kind of like our relationship. And like about 3 or 4 weeks in, he admitted, he's like, I didn't know you're just good looking, and I just wanted to hang out with you.
So you met him, and then when did y'all, he was doing the comedy thing, and were you trying to do the comedy thing also?
Yeah. And I wasn't doing stand up, and neither was he. We were doing like the improv stuff. We were doing sketch, Herald stuff, and yeah, and we were also doing the acting, trying to get, but he was, man, I should have known right away meeting him that like I didn't have what it took, if that's what it takes, because I couldn't do what he did. I mean, he would go into a room and everybody was like, who is that? And I mean, I'd go in a room and, a couple girls might notice me.
Yeah.
Maybe. That'd be it. He just had this thing. But we're both struggling, and I think he finally got the Ben Stiller show. And so I basically was his son's nanny for a summer.
Okay.
And then, really the band was formed because he just didn't like to be on stage alone.
Okay.
just wasn't fun, or he was nervous, or all of the above.
So where like when was this timeline wise, like in his career? You said he was on the Ben Stiller show.
Oh yeah, no, this was like he was sleeping on my futon when we met.
Okay.
Like he had not succeeded. He had done a couple things. In fact, he hadn't done anything really.
Yeah.
Something about him, he turned down more roles than most people ever get. Yeah, he just got offered so much stuff and he just really, when he was still together in his head, he had a pretty clear picture. Although he did turn down Saturday Night Live, which he says he regrets. So that was,
I would imagine
that was a mistake. Yeah, that's how full of himself he was. He thought he was bigger than that at the time. But yeah, so I don't know.
Mid '90s for SNL was pretty big.
Yeah, this is right before that.
Okay.
This is like 92, 91. So
yeah,
it was kind of on a dip. And like we knew Chris Farley from Chicago. He had just joined the show.
Yeah.
And so it was sort of going back up, but And so anyway, people would always ask him to do, like he would do this show called Uncabaret, which they still do in LA, which would be a bunch of like comics that you know who they are now, but at the time some of them were a little less known.
Yeah.
And so I would just do songs with him. Mm-hmm. I'd play guitar and sing backups, and I'd be the straight man, both literally and figuratively. And So were they were they comedy songs? All comedy.
Yeah.
All comedy. I think the first one was "Look at Me," which he would put it evolved, but he would put a wig on and glasses and just like look at me, like because he wanted attention. Like that was kind of his whole vibe. But other song titles include the A Dick theme, "Mad About Cunt." Yeah, there was some, Cock and Balls is when I still play sometimes if I play out. Yeah, so.
That's a good one.
Yeah, dirty ones. But at the beginning, okay, so like just to give you the timeline. So we're doing these shows. It was me and him, then a couple other people kind of joined us, Tim Walsh and David Paul Wyndham and Paul Henderson. It kind of was like the four of us. Uh-huh. And
y'all were playing just like, rock and roll type songs, but comedy songs.
Yeah. Actually, Mickey Dolenz said we were true punk.
Okay.
Because like we weren't following any rules, and we just didn't care, and we were really, none of this would work today in this PC environment. I mean, the fact that he's not canceled yet, I guess he is. I don't know. Anyway, today's not what we're talking about, but yeah, it was a different time. And I honestly, there'd be times where I was like, I can't believe you're saying this stuff.
It was so shocking even at the time. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was the Howard Stern time. And actually that's the thing. That's the first big thing we did. We were doing this for a little while. All comedians, like Ryan Stiles actually told me this one night in a bar, that he was like, all comedians just want to be rock stars. And when he told me that's when I kind of quit doing comedy and like kind of dove into music personally. Yeah. So we're doing that.
Were y'all playing comedy clubs, or were y'all doing like rock venues with other bands?
We would just do these. It was mostly comedy stuff. Yeah. Like we did like the Improv once, and it wasn't a show, but we ended up with Pauly Shore on stage at the Comedy Store one night. That was crazy. Chris Rock was there that night. Yeah, I know. I'm just dropping names left and right.
No, that's incredible, man. You're blowing my mind.
Yeah, but yeah, what was it? The Improv in San Diego asked us. Okay, so the timeline of this is, so now he had gotten news radio. Mm-hmm. Like he had done a few things, but he's on news radio now. Yeah. So he's like,
and that was like his big break.
That was his big break, and that was like he was cute little Matthew, I think was his character's name, and he was just like, maybe like slightly effeminate, dorky, but just adorable and endearing.
Yeah.
And these places, like, the Improv's like, you want your show. We want the whole show.
Yeah.
And he said, it's not Matthew from News Radio. It's not.
Yeah.
Nobody ever heard that.
Oh, man.
Ever. So that first Improv, there was 2 shows in San Diego. Those were fine, but I just remember because at the time he was early on, like he would have somebody videoing, which I don't know where any of this footage is. I would love to know. And they were interviewing people after the show, and there was this like dude, like old, he's like, I was in 2 wars. I've got a piece of shrapnel this big in my leg. That was the worst pain I've ever been in that my life. Like the show, like really upset him. It was this, the show, every show, like, well, when we had the full complement, every show started like this. It would just be Andy, and he would be in a suit, and he would be very nervous, and he would be telling these jokes, and would start off by something like, hello, everybody. I'm Andy Dick, and I'm doing the show sober. This is the first sober show I've done ever. And then he just starts to like tell these jokes, and they're really cute little jokes. Like it's like he takes out an AA pamphlet, and he's like, okay, do you have a drinking problem? Number 1, do you like to drink alone. He's like, duh, and like it's just like saying, they're just really cheesy. And for me, if people were laughing hard at this point in the show, I would get worried because I'm like, they're not going to get this show at all. I mean, like Auburn was a good example of that.
Yeah. That's like pseudo Andy Kaufman-esque, where like
he was very much inspired by Andy Kaufman. Yeah. And so like the fourth or fifth one, he's like, number 5, do you have memory loss? No. Number 5, do you have memory loss? And it's funny. Yeah. And then you hear this voice in the back going, oh yeah, that's really fucking funny. And like you start to like, there's like some uncomfortable stuff and like it starts to build and you like, it's this ginormous sweaty man, bearded, long hair, and he is heckling hardcore. Yeah. And Andy was like, oh my God, Paul? That's Paul, that's my sponsor. Wait, are you drunk? Wait. You have 8 years sobriety. He's like, not in a row. And he like makes his way to the stage. And we would tell the security about this. And in some places, they didn't get it. Yeah. And he would come out stage and he would start like making fun of Andy. And Andy would run off stage. And he comes back and he starts dancing with Andy. And he's trying to make up. And Andy's just mad. And Andy punches him in the stomach. Yeah. And he has gone back and filled his mouth with chunky corn chowder. Yeah. And he throws up all over Andy's face. And Andy, like, specifically was like, it has to get on my glasses because it's more pathetic if it drips off my glasses. Yeah. That's how the show would start.
Man, that's some shock.
People would like be calling for weeks, like betting their girlfriends, like if it was real or not, Yeah. Like it was nuts. Sometimes it would get on my pedal board, which is not nice. Yeah. And then I'd have to go out. Sometimes I'd have to go out there and sing a song to like, for him to change.
Because it would be that bad. Yeah.
Well, no, he had to change every time, but I'm just saying like, there was sometimes there would be somebody else. We had Vicki Lewis from the news radio, which sometimes come with us on the road. So she would sing a song and I always preferred that because I was like, I don't want to be the one to like take the next moment on stage. But anyway, so yeah. That was like the beginning. And then we did like a weekly thing for a year at the Key Club. And then we did like the Viper Room and we did the Mint. And so we did like these residencies there.
So were most people coming? Were they coming because of
in LA
news radio?
Well, no. In LA, they started to get wind of it. Okay. But yeah. When we would tour colleges, it was news radio. And they were rarely prepared for what they were getting, even though we would try to warn them, you know. And the internet wasn't what it is now, so it wasn't like they were getting a heads up about it. Right. We didn't get. I think we got mentioned like rarely, And then he would be on E, and I wouldn't be in the picture, and it was, That was the thing. He was. People that like me are not. They don't like him. Yeah. They just don't like the way he treats people. And honestly, I probably took more abuse than I needed to, but I thought, okay, if I just hang on a little longer, we'll have some kind of radio thing and then I can just like, live off of that. And I'm pretty happy it didn't work out that way. Yeah. But, yeah.
Yeah. Cause you were kind of hoping to kind of parlay that into a career for yourself, maybe?
I thought so. That's what I was thinking, and I mean, it was fun. I mean, I got to I was going to some really cool parties and, like Reese Witherspoon is like checking us out at one show. It's like, it was like that. Yeah. It was cool.
And how old are you at this point?
Like 23, 24. And then we did Howard Stern. That was kind of like the first big thing, really. And it was weird because Howard was so nice to him. He didn't give him any crap. Didn't call him out for anything. He had just gotten sober. He had gotten arrested. And then he got sober. A lot of our songs came out of him getting arrested, actually.
Andy Dick?
Yeah. Yeah. And so, he was really nice. And like, we sang the song Little Brown Ring was the song we sang, which was one of my songs called Little Black Bugs, which we just changed because we didn't have any music. We didn't have any song. We were just like, I don't even know what we were playing. We were just messing around. Yeah. So, yeah. And Howard loved it. And, so I thought that was kind of like the start of some big things. But, he's such a self-saboteur. It was not to be for so many reasons.
And how long? So after news radio ended, was he still doing the band thing after that?
Yeah. Uh-huh. We were doing that all through that. I used to hang out sometimes on the set, news radio. Got to hang out with Phil Hartman a few times.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I want to hear about the Woodstock 99 show.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, Woodstock 99. they were having celebrities introduce the bands. So that's how we even ended up. Our band would have never been there. We were, you know. Oh, by the way, the band was called Andy Dick and the Bitches of the Century, which we actually,
brilliant.
Yeah, and we started it prior to the turn of the century, which was kind of the whole point at the time. It was like we're still just a new century, you know. And so we were bitches, which I thought was hilarious. But
that is a very punk rock name.
Yeah, kind of, you know. And so we end up at Woodstock, and we were only there the first day. He was still on probation. And so here's one footnote. So there's 2 stages, right? And everyone credits James Brown as being the first music of the festival, but we played the first notes of Woodstock 99.
Okay.
Because there was like a second stage with 60,000 people, smaller stage.
Yeah.
60,000 people.
60,000.
It's so weird to even think of it. I remember they had taught me this song, Cock and Balls, that morning. So I'm like basically on stage playing a song I don't even know.
Yeah.
Which did not appreciate, which is typical of that band. But it was this little tour called Spitfire that we did a bunch, and with people like Ice-T and Woody Harrelson and like activists like the president of the Sierra Club.
Yeah.
And so we got to do that. So we were the first act of the whole day, and we were the first, like no one else on that little thing was doing music. They're all speaking.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a warm-up, but we played our song before anyone else. I mean, I remember driving in a golf cart, hearing James Brown start, and we were off stage already.
Oh, that's crazy.
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
I think it's cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. So we did that. Then it was like a mile of people, like to get to the other stage, but we had a golf cart, luckily.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see, there was like a whole area backstage. Like I think all these festivals are like this, and it's all like Converse and Nike, but it's
like corporate sponsored type stuff. Yeah.
But they're giving all of this stuff free.
Yeah.
To all the acts. So I ended up with like a couple pairs of shoes and a t-shirt and a hat, and I don't even remember. So then the second time we go on stage, the whole time I didn't hear anything because all I had on my monitor was Sheryl Crow's bass player sound checking. Like I didn't hear anything we were doing. And like it's Woodstock, so there's like people in the crowd like topless.
Yeah.
Because it's Woodstock. And like there was one girl, I remember she like slowly climbed her boyfriend's arms, and then she slowly like got her balance, and she's standing up straight, and she's like got herself, and then she just takes her top off. That was kind of the vibe. So that's what we're walking into. And
so it's wild ass from the beginning.
I mean, wild, but I don't know how wild it is a bunch of girls with their shirts off. I mean, it's not normal, but it's not, it hadn't gotten crazy. No, first day it wasn't crazy yet, although we're getting there. So so he, you know, we're playing acoustic, 180,000 people at this stage.
Yeah.
That's a mile of people. You lose track after like 500. You can't really, I mean,
that's crazy.
It's hard to,
it's just literally a sea of faces.
Yeah. It's crazy. And you're
on the big stage at this point.
The big stage. And he's not getting any kind of response because most people probably can't even hear him.
Yeah.
But to him, he's bombing. So what does he do? He tries to do what he does. So he jumps in the crowd. He was wearing one of my really favorite shirts. That goes away. He lost his shoes in the crowd. But then he got back on stage and he whipped his dick out, which I've seen his dick as much almost as my own. He just liked to take it out all the time. Like all the time.
And I wonder why he got arrested so many times.
Yeah, exactly. So the stage manager yanks us off the stage, and she's like screaming, and I'm like, he's going to jail, like, because he just did that on stage in Woodstock. He's going to jail. And you know, they're yelling at him, and I'm just packing my stuff up, and then like they go into this room, and I don't know how I had this time, but I ended up smoking a bowl because I was like, we're done for the day.
Yeah.
Apparently, like the whole thing run by DirecTV, they didn't see his dick.
Yeah.
And so they're like, get Andy back out there. And I'm like, okay, you know, great. So Andy, this is part of the genius of Andy. He from News Radio, for some reason, he had this blue foam body armor suit that he brought with him.
Okay.
So me and Timmy, so that's the other thing. Timmy didn't even have a strap. So he's sitting playing guitar on a seat, and and I had the presence of mind, I had a little Kodak camera to take a photo and have him take a photo. So I have a really cool photo of me in front of the crowd.
Yeah.
That like people are like, oh, you Photoshop. I'm like, there was no Photoshop when I took that photo, but whatever. And so then Andy comes out. I felt like 10 minutes later.
So what time of day is this? It's still the first day?
First day. We're right before the Offspring, so I don't know.
Okay.
I feel like it was late in the day, but I
late afternoon,
lost
probably,
track.
early
Yeah, it was still daytime still. And And so he comes out with this body armor, and people are already starting to get a little unruly. And somebody threw something at him, and he's like, "Bring it on, bring it on!"
Oh no!
And it was like a rainstorm of debris, bottles, cans, rocks. I had an open switchblade come by. I'm high as fuck, and I'm like, literally, like I don't know. I guess I was 25, and I just thought it was great. So I'm just dodging, stuff, and just
bottles and cans.
Yeah, still playing. Didn't stop playing, and then I just slowly, like as if someone's banging me on the back of the head with a hammer, I hear, "Get the fuck off the stage!" And they're like screaming at us to get off the stage. The stage is covered with trash. It took them 20 minutes to clear the trash off after us.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And I remember we go backstage, and like Rolling Stone photographer's there. He takes a photo of us. I'm like, this band is going to take off right now. This is legendary. And then the next 2 days happened, and nobody even knew.
There's a footnote, Yeah,
we didn't even know we played it, That's
funny.
Yeah.
And then, meanwhile, Flea's coming out just bare ass naked.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm happy we were gone before all that.
So did y'all leave the next day or that day?
The next day, yeah. The only real band I got to watch and enjoy, which I'm not even a fan, was Korn.
Yeah.
And I was on stage, and like everyone in that place was shot. He comes in like playing bagpipes.
Yeah.
It was cool as shit. I mean, I'm still not a Korn fan, but I was like, that was a great moment, Anyway.
So what happens after that? Do y'all just do more gigs?
Yeah, we do more shows, and but it's very documented how he has substance abuse problems, and it just became the next probably significant gig was Jacksonville.
Okay.
Now Jacksonville is the same city that Jim Morrison got arrested on stage, and Two Live Crew got arrested on stage.
Yeah.
So we show up, and is not the crowd for us. I mean, this is like when, I forget his name, this is like when Florida State was like really good at football, and that's all they cared about.
That's it, yeah.
And and he was wasted. Oh my God, was he drunk. And the stage is this, like, it was in the auditorium, and it was like a 10-foot platform with like, there was no handrails or anything.
Yeah.
And he's chasing us around the stage. That was something he used to do. He used to like make mistakes and blame us. And it would be funny if he was sober, but if he wasn't sober, like it could get scary.
Yeah.
And he's like, I didn't want him to get me. Like I'm running away from him, and then he's getting heckled. And normally he could take down a heckler, no problem. But he's too drunk. So he gets a wireless mic, and he runs into the crowd, and he's trying to like take this heckler down, but the heckler's like getting the best of him. Mm-hmm. So he takes his pants down, Andy does, and like wipes his butt on the guy's leg, which I didn't see this. I heard about this.
Yeah.
And so the police are like there, and they go to the student liaison. And I don't know who this girl was. She wasn't on our team, but I guess she was an Andy fan. And like without even missing a beat, she's like, "Oh no, it's a bit. He's wearing a body stocking. It's fine."
Yeah.
And the cops believed her. So that's why we didn't get arrested. But I was just so angry that whole
man.
Right before, like, I'm the dressing room before the show, I have my brand new Taylor guitar, and it fell off of me while I was tuning and broke a piece out. So and I hadn't eaten. Like, I hate Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Every time I go, something happens. So I could probably never go there again. But so after the show, so that's going on, and then some kid pulled the fire alarm, and that's how the show ended. Is the place emptied out, like,
just because of the fire alarm?
Yeah.
Oh,
perfect. Actually, I was happy about it. And then I remember we're at some restaurant, after the show, we'd always go and hang out with the kids, from the, and I remember walking around the corner, and it's Andy and like 30 kids that are just like all around him. And I don't know what he was saying. And he was like, "Right, Andrew?" And I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." I was just like, "Oh, I can't believe," like, he just did that show, and he still got all these people that liked him. Like, that, I should have known where America was heading at that point, I guess. Anyway.
That's crazy. So then how did your time with him end?
It kind of just fizzled away. Yeah, I just started getting sick of it. Like, before I met his accountant, it was always like, are we getting paid?
Oh yeah.
I remember one time I went over there to get paid, and I was like, "Can you write me a check?" And he was like, "Yeah." And he wrote me the check with a big smile. I was like, "Is it gonna bounce?" He's like, "Give it a whirl." I mean, that was like what it was like. Yeah. No, yeah. So I finally met his accountant, and I would get pay directly, but there was traumatic part of the experience, just he was abusive, and so again, I was an adult. I wanted to see it through, and at a certain point I just was like, I'm
just too much
done. I can't see it through. And so I'm sad that it didn't go further, but it is what it is.
When was your last show with him?
I don't remember.
Yeah,
I think there was a couple. It's foggy. There was one at the Roxy that was some benefit, and like when we were done, I remember getting off stage, or like the curtain comes down, it was Susanna Hoffs was playing right after us. That was weird. And then there was some other random show, I don't remember where it was, and I was playing drums because I wanted to go, but like he already had someone else kind of filling in because I just kind of stopped hanging out. So he actually had this guy playing with him for a while that I thought he was always nice to me, but he just seemed like a little bit of a punk. But then he started to get some traction, and that dude's name is Mark Foster the People.
Okay.
Yeah. I was like, I remember bumping into Andy like years later. He's like, did you know that Mark got nominated for a Grammy? And I was like, why? I was so out of the loop. But good song. I mean, whatever. He was always nice to me, that kid.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's funny. So what's he doing now? Like
Oh man, he's just getting arrested. And anytime that guy gets arrested, somebody will message me like, I need to know. And I'm like,
I don't need to know.
I let it go a while ago. Last time I saw him was 2019. I was out there shooting Callie D's Master of the Mic show. And we hung out one night, and he was super drunk.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was fun. I remember having a lot of laughs, and then I took a few photos, and then he doesn't remember. He only remembers we hung out. He doesn't remember anything that happened.
That's crazy.
Really sad. Yeah.
That is sad.
So, yeah.
Oh, you hate to see that.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to hang out. I just, I don't think he's got it together, and I don't know. I don't need to go back to LA. I've kind of done that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Tell me now about your dream gig, whether that's playing or shooting.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I've passed my interest in playing and acting and all that.
Yeah.
It's definitely shooting. So I don't know. A lot of people maybe don't know how it works, but like when you're doing a big show with a big band, if you even get approved, you're getting 3 songs, if you're lucky, from the pit, otherwise from the soundboard.
Yeah.
So for me, the dream gig would get to go to the next level where I had all access on stage, and it would be for like my top band would be Grateful Dead, but Jerry Garcia has been gone, and Dead & Company's fine. I've shot them. Yeah. But it's not the same.
Shot them here in town?
Yeah, at Dos Equis. And then I'm going to hopefully be shooting Bob Weir, who's from the Dead, coming up. But, Fish is one on my list that like Trey was at the Bomb Factory, and I didn't get approved because he didn't let anyone shoot but like Phil Clarkin, which I was bummed, but it happens. But yeah, I mean, really, it's not even about the band. It would be more about the access.
The access,
that's just, to me, because everybody can get the same types of shots from the pit.
That's so, Andrew, man, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
This was so much fun.
Yeah, I'm glad I remembered it.
No, they were fantastic stories. So how can people kind of find out about you and see like your shots and stuff like that? Yeah,
well, you can always go to drewlio.com, DREWLIO.com, Drewlio Photo on Instagram. And, I'm available. People probably think I'm too busy. If you want me to shoot something, hit me up. Like,
that's cool.
It's a good chance. And then I just started doing the Dallas Famous podcast on Deep Ellum Radio.
Yes, absolutely. And it's fantastic, y'all. Everybody needs to go check that out.
Thanks.
We'll be sure to push that also.
Awesome.
That's great.
Right on.
Man, Andrew, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This
Thanks,
has been fun.
man. It's been fun.
All right, there he goes. Big thanks to Andrew Sherman for coming on the podcast. It was a lot of fun getting to hear those pretty wild stories. Y'all please go check him out, drewliophoto.com. Also check out the Dallas Famous podcast on Deep Ellum Radio or wherever you get your podcasts. As always, thank you for listening to The Strangest Gig. Please give us a follow on Instagram at The Strangest Gig. Tell your friends about us. Help us spread the word if you like what we're doing. And we'll see you back here next month. And until then, if you find yourself a bitch of the century, just remember, gig's a gig, right?